Hey guys, Oracle, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Let's carry on where we left off. We've learned the truth behind our best friend's tragic death. He fell and broke his spine, and somewhere in between that, he managed to write the word wardrobe in Cyrillic using an ink bottle that had fallen right beside him. Something doesn't quite add up in that series of events, but hey, as long as I'm not guilty, take these handcuffs off, I'm free to go. I really enjoyed my second data deduction snapping my fingers and pointing him, so I could really get used to that feeling right now, Mr. Sholmes. Unlock these cuffs. Or, sorry, don't put them back on. They're already off, right? Miss Pavlova, of course, admitting to the involvement of her cat. How it infiltrated Kazuma's room and caused the freak accident. I have to say, I have an inkling, pun not intended, that something else is afoot here. Miss Pavlova? I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize. But please remember this. You're guilty as fuck! No, just kidding. Your young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you! But... What are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. Still... there are a couple of things we have yet to have answers for. It was just a series of unfortunate events. An accident. If only it were that simple. I'm kinda leaning towards the fact that we may have to defend Miss Pavlova here, because we're obviously not guilty, especially now that this cat situation has been let out of the bag. That pun was intended. So, we're obviously not guilty. Miss Pavlova appears to be guilty, out of negligence, really. But, yeah, I still can't shake the feeling he was murdered, and someone just took advantage of this. We've seen this a couple of times in the Ace Attorney series, where someone believes themselves to be the culprit, that they are the ones that committed murder, but they weren't, in fact, guilty. Case in point, Edgeworth in the DL6 incident. I'm no great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that was not the truth. Uh-oh. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Thank you, Sparky, for pointing out that, when we address people by Mr. and Ms., we're speaking English, but when we, append san to the end of names, we're speaking Japanese. I thought that was a neat detail to be brought up to the forefront of our minds. To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. I just can't quite put my finger on it. Well, Mr. Sholmes, you seem to be deep in thought. I confess. I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. Really? But we're bound for Hong Kong. I can't see how Scotland Yard has any jurisdiction whatsoever. Oh. Well, I'm only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. Oh, well, sorry to get in your damn way, Mr. Sholmes. Sorry for correcting your mistakes during your great deduction. Twice, mind you. A distraction. I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Ah, not again. When did he do that? Especially as they're on your wrists as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call. You were, Mr. Sholmes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. And what is that? The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yes, he was. Just like I'm sure Dr. Wilson was to you. If I've got that right. Yes. Kazuma was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom, even. So why in the hell would I want to kill him? In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, okay. Yes. Whatever that may be. What do you think I've been trying to do this entire time? You think I'm just touring the first class cabin because I've been stuck in a wardrobe for the past 2 weeks? Stretching my legs? No! I'm trying to save myself here. Again! The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. Ooh, have we got another minigame on our hands? I love minigames. I mean, you know, visual novels are all well and good reading, but come on, we all like a bit of action. The truth about how you really died. About how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Hit me! Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. Miss Pavlova has clammed up. So then, shall we begin? Yes! Can I get the cuffs off for this as well? What should we ponder first? Okay, we've transported back in time. Is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident.
Hold it!
That's the first time I think we've heard him say hold it, have we? No, I'm sure we have a couple of times before. Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Well, we've seen that Miss Pavlova has dumped the bell in her trash. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. She obviously hasn't been in the other room, otherwise she would have taken that other bell too. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin. It's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Huh? Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. Alright, taking another look at the post-mortem report, we've got damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. There is no way in hell he would have been able to write that message unless he was beyond the grave. So, I believe this is the evidence that proves that the victim's death was no mere accident, as well as the fact that, you know, you wouldn't write the word wardrobe, unless that's what he's blaming to have snapped his neck on.
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. That script. It's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language. Japanese, in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. So what? I've studied French before. That doesn't mean I'm gonna write a French word for wardrobe on the ground. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. It may be simple, but it doesn't beat out his native tongue. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry, what do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Oh. There was also no external injuries as well, so I guess he fell, and that's why there was no resistance, because he was already unconscious on the floor, and he was easy pickings for his actual killer. Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything, because he was already dead. And I don't think Darka knows Russian either, even though it is a Russian cat. But that's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there, if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So, Susato-san has noticed it too, then? Putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. In other words, well, if we're going by the word remnant that Susato mentioned earlier, I can only think of one thing that there's a remnant of, and that's the bell of Darka's collar.
Yes!
Right there. This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. But that's the glass bell the kitten had around its neck. We already know all about that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there is a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Oh. I thought it was because the glass bell broke, and still half of it was on Darka's collar, and the other half had fallen to the floor. But, let's see what these guys are insisting. Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in that wastepaper basket. But you can't explain that, Miss Pavlova. Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Yeah. Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asogi's... Whoa. You're wasting time. Someone else was there? Duh, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? Me. Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There was no way in or out. Oh, yes. And only other person in cabin when young student died was you. Uh-oh, we're getting silhouettes of us now.
Yes!
You don't have to say it so enthusiastically there, Ryunosuke. It's true, I was in the cabin when it happened. It was shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. I swear I don't know Russian. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? I'm spinning a tale here. Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying... Alright, back to the flashback. The person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. How'd they know someone was in there in the first place? And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor. So, like, why didn't she pick up all of it then? For fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Asogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Was it tucked beneath his body, and she didn't see it? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Yes, well... Okay, now you can cut it, Herlock Jobs. It was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. No lights. A single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. You know, I question this logic, Mr. Sholmes. We have established that this room has no window. So it doesn't matter if it's 1:15 in the morning or 1:15 in the middle of the day, the lighting will be exactly the same. Little wonder, then, that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. I guess you could say she was tired because she had just boarded the ship, but I like to think of it as the bell was stuck under Mr. Asogi's corpse. Unless that comes up later. I mean, it's happened before with the barbaric way the steak was eaten by Iesanosa. You all suspect me, don't you? Uh-oh. Oh, he's really coming to bat for you, Miss Pavlova. Seaman Stroganov. Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills, and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. Oh, I see. So you do have a history. That's why you let her on board. That makes sense now. You do not accuse ship's angel of being criminal. No, you just accuse the stowaway Japanese boys trapped in a wardrobe. Ah, so that's it. You say that when the young student died, Nina was there in his cabin? But that is not possible. I give my tooth. I don't want your damn teeth. What am I, the tooth fairy? Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How could you be so sure? You are a great detective. You should know. He's the mediocre detective, from what we've learned, based on his deductions. And I'm looking forward to the ones further on. Apparently, they're gonna get crazier and crazier. Look truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin. Not Nina, not anyone. Or you want to tell me that killer can walk through locked doors? Yet it's impossible. Ugh, he's right.
But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside.
Susato, please, alright? This entire time you've been harping on about the fact that that's impossible. You can't just suddenly believe in it now, okay? I know we're trying to do this for the sake of the story, but please, some consistency would be nice. Thread? Are you stupid? You stupid peasant staying in steerage? These bulkheads are not barn doors. There are no cows. Moo. No sheep. Bah. No horse. Yay. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship. Constructed of heavy steel, with not a gap in sight. No threads, or needles, or magnets could have been used.
No, of course not. I thought so too. I just thought I'd turn about my theory for a second. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so...
Oh, don't pawn this off on me. Susato-san, how could you shift it onto me like that?
So Seaman Stroganov has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside.
Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. You might have to, actually, to get to the emergency button outside, so maybe don't make that kind of promise, Detective Shobes. And in this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method I have in mind being used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside. One way does spring to mind, yes.
Do you really know what Mr. Sholmes means, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes. And so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So, would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside. There's something here. Oh, the telling signs? The tilted books.
Yes!
That's an easy one, straight off the bat. Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over?
That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before.
Thankfully, your OCD in regards to tidiness came into handy here. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel, after all. I like how we cleaned the cabin that we said before opening the door, but we didn't clean the books up. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over, including one Mr. Kazuma Asogi.
I believe... Yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia, acting on the objects.
Is there nothing Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book, at least? I was gonna say, if there's anything she doesn't know, it's probably in her book. Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookcase also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door.
Ah!
It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before, and we hadn't bolted the door, even though we probably should have to prevent you guys from sneaking out on us. But then... Hello? Is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like...
Inspector Hosonaga.
Beat you to it.
Oh yes. That's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door.
Yes. It's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or, the force of inertia, if you want to call it that. Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asogi was killed, inertia was responsible for locking that door? Goodness me, luckily my mispronunciation of it didn't take hold. There we go. The bolt slid shut. That's obviously not very good, is it? If that boat has to come to an emergency stop, there's obviously an emergency. And if you can't get into the doors to the rooms, it's It's certainly life-threatening. The SS Burya made another emergency stop. When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. That's right, the food was on the floor and everything. It looked like there were signs of a struggle, but no, they weren't, because he didn't resist, because he has no visible signs of injuries. The reason that whole room is in turmoil is because we stopped. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over.
Oh, yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I?
And when we came to this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Osogi's cabin.
Oh my.
Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? I like how she's hiding behind Seaman Stroganov. Are you out of your mind? You say Burya made emergency stop? It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room? Oh, it is simple enough. At least, Detective Sholmes has all the pieces to the puzzle this time. Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside? Used to trigger the emergency alarm.
Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only to press the button in times of emergency.
Maybe they pressed the emergency button because they saw that Kazuma was dead? On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. Right. And the bell is shaped like a breast. That's also an important detail. The sort of button one is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Oh, looking away again, are we? Wait! It was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interests of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings, and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. I knew it! Only he would be brash enough to do that.
Mr. Sholmes, surely it wasn't you who...
As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. Not like that stupid snake that has no venom in its fangs. To be pressed, whatever the occasion. He sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with ship! I report you to Captain. You are in much trouble now. Suka. Now. I'm sure that all that can wait until later. Let us not overlook the fact that we have now learnt a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin doors slide close. So, what we now must consider.
Yes, it all comes down to one thing now.
When the button was pressed.
Last night, after what happened to Mr. Osogi. Did this ship make an emergency stop? Or did it not?
You are idiots! Burya's huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop, even in middle of night, there will be chaos everywhere. Just like now. You guys clearly don't see what's happening below deck. You are in first class cabin. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea.
Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo?
Fascinating. Do show us, my good man. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night? I suppose this is probably the best thing to present, the fact that he didn't write nothing to report, which meant there was something to report, but he didn't write it down. Let's present this and see where we go.
Yes!
Seaman Stroganov, it's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right? That is correct. Why? And the ship's log here. This would be where you record the details of your duties. What are you doing with that? That is mine! Ah, you rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose! That is where I put it always! The point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances, you write the phrase nothing to report every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is... Duh! Because nothing happened. Okay, well, let's quickly review the court record for a bit. I just want to get my timeline right. I haven't actually put much thought into what's happened. So, look at Kazuma's diary, 1:23 a.m. He can hear a faint whistling sound. So, Miss Pavlova was already aboard the ship at this time, so we can't say that the emergency stop happened to let her board the ship, of course. So, if we look at the post-mortem report, if I don't back out of the court record, he died between 1 a.m. and a little past 2 a.m. And if we look at the ship's log, he obviously died around 2 a.m. mark, I think. We can safely say, because he was knocked unconscious probably about after 1:35. But if nothing happened, you would normally write nothing to report, wouldn't you? Indeed so. Which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened. Here aboard the SS Burya. Well, something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact.
Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night?
Stop talking rubbish! If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh? Why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened. I like that Inspector Hosonaga is still kind of playing the devil's advocate. He is an inspector. It's his nature to question things. Even if it's as convenient to land on my side, surely all of us would have noticed.
That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently, and the alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night.
And yet all our heads are throbbing this fine morning. Well, no. That's a good point. Anything, Mr. Sholmes? What of the throbbing? Sorry? What do you mean, throbbing? I don't want to know what's throbbing with you, Mr. Sholmes. Your head, man! The throbbing of your head since this morning. We've all suffered with it. Ah. Oh, yes. I have had a headache, you're right. Did the men in black come in and neuralize us all? In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today.
Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn.
Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. He's right. My head's been throbbing today, too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. So, is it to do with our dinner then? But then everyone... Alright, of course, everyone would have had to be affected because, like Sir Beef Stroganoff said, the steerage, the whole entire ship would have been in chaos if they had made an emergency stop. So absolutely no one was aware of it. Does this mean this murder was planned? Since dinner time, at the very least. Then the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. It's a very elaborate scheme. I'd already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all that was happening to me? Yeah, I seem to have had it the worst. Obviously, everyone else was awake, investigating the crime scene when they found me. How did everyone wake up before me? Did I just have a stronger dose? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo. You boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes. Sorry. The stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Well, Kazuma looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes. In fact, I had all of that. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right. He didn't touch it. Is that relevant? That is very curious. My dear fellow, does that not strike you?
Oh. Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chicken?
I I do. No! Really? Is that really true? Now I'm beginning to wonder, did Kazuma die because he didn't eat the chicken? Did he witness something he shouldn't have? The meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. Which was everyone. A sleeping drug? Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug so no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? Mr. Naruhodo, of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea! Actually, precisely. Lacing every meal of every passenger on board with a soporific drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. What? Mr. Sholmes! Well, Seaman, wouldn't Inspector Hosonaga be in on that plan too, or did they know that he was an inspector? I'm sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. Don't look at her. You're talking to me. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry, made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, would be hauled over to the coals. You can bank on Scotland Yard making sure that happens, for aiding and abetting a renegade. A renegade? Oof. Well, Mr. Stroganov, anything to say?
Please, no more. I will tell everything.
Eh?
I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore.
These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe.
Yes. So when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me.
We all agreed to help. Everyone together. She threw away everything. Her fame in the ballet. Mother Russia. We wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. Right, because he obviously hasn't worked with her before, so he was included in the list of people to be spiked. You are right. We put sleeping drug in chicken last night. Yes, I remember now. I did notice chewing on a lump of something strange and bitter at one point. Duh. We could not make all drug... how do you say? Dissolve. Ugh. Talk about heavy seasoning. At midnight, in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. And within an hour and a half, she caused trouble. She was helped by Comrade on shore with small fishing boat, while all the passengers of the SS Boyer slept soundly. Thanks to the almost magical effects of the slumber-inducing potion their evening meals had contained. So if that's what happened, the only people awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who disliked chicken, and Miss Pavlova, the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Kazuma's cabin door. Nope, we've already established. But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case, and there would have been complete chaos. Oh, I wouldn't say so. What? Ah, of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meal of chicken in their cabins, after which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite. And accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. But since Kazuma didn't eat the chicken, I'm surprised he didn't write in his diary, "We made an emergency stop." If he's gonna write something mundane about a whistling in the room next door, surely he'd write about the ship stopping in the middle of the night. At midnight. Yes! Damn, there's so many holes that we need to fill in. The overwhelming majority of passengers would habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway. And so not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the door locked in the morning. And if they did, they probably would just blame it on the tiredness. Oh, I don't remember locking it. I must have done it, but I was sleepy. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door on the ship, the culprit brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked a long time and said many things. What is point? Classic Ace Attorney comeback. You may have proved that the murder didn't take place here but over there, but so what? The culprit still did it. The point is what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life last night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragments of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night.
What? I don't know about any of this. I'm just a little girl.
You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas like a dumb Russian bulky man. But I am sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me, we trust only what we see with our eyes. Right. A laudable trait. What? Laudable? Laughable? I'm quite of the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Do you hear it? That accusatory cry of guilt in the wind.
What accusatory cry of guilt?
Sorry, you've lost me. Proof of involvement, man. But you can't hear such a call with your ears. No. You must hear it with your eyes. For observation is the basis of all deduction. Well then, just say I can see the wind, damn it. Not here. Don't get your senses all mixed up. What are you talking about? Jesus Christ, just say simple words, layman words. I believe the time has come. For one final logic and reasoning spectacular. To expose the truth. Oh my god. We're doing it. So, Mr. Naruhodo, your assistance, if you please. With what exactly, Mr. Sholmes? My hands are cuffed. With observation, my dear fellow, just as I said, of these two prevarications. Observation.
If you remember, Mr. Naruhodo, we know that somebody tried to fabricate evidence, don't we? By tampering with the scene of Mr. Asogi's death. What we're looking for is some trace of evidence that one of these two was there when it happened.
Precisely. You are delightfully quick to grasp my meaning. Alright, I'll see what I can see. So we're looking for a trace of evidence that shows someone else was there last night when Cosma died. What suggests that someone was there at the scene? Chunky arms. We're gonna need to observe carefully. Ink stain. I can barely see it. Oh, from this angle, it's a lot easier.
Yes!
There! Seaman Stroganoff. You've got a little bit of a messy patch behind your back. You seem to have quite a large purple stain on the back of your white uniform there. Huh? Ah, yes. I don't know where the dirt comes from. So now we can place Beef Stroganoff at the scene. What's going on here? How many people went to and fro that room? So nothing in particular comes to mind about the stain. What are you trying to say? It would appear that the significance of this stain has escaped your attention, Seaman. Allow us to make it plain. It's a very large purple stain on the back of Seaman Stroganoff's uniform. And I think what made it is clear. Indeed it is. So, Mr. Naruhodo, present the evidence that proves it. My pleasure. Alright then, the evidence that proves what the stain on the back of Seaman Stroganoff's uniform really is. Okay, well I don't have the ink bottle on my list of evidence. Probably will need to present this picture. Sorry, if I'm not typically confident, I'll go through all the evidence to make sure that I've chosen the absolute correct thing.
Yes!
We're presenting it. Okay. Yes, it's this photograph, and the ink it shows. That's what caused the stain on your uniform. Ink? But then he could easily say that he got it when he came upon the scene with Herlock Sholmes. A rather unusual color of ink. Purple. Ugh. It is. Pink, oh sorry, not pink. Purple, purple ink. would be very rare because purple is usually the color of royalty, is it not? And the reason they chose that was because purple dye was uncommon. I don't know about purple ink. It's just a theory. Ah, the penny drops at last. Now you see the significance. The Russian word on the floor next to the victim's body was written in purple ink. And the stain on the back of your uniform is ink of exactly the same color. If the ink had been dry, it couldn't possibly have stained your uniform in that way. Which means... Ah, right, of course. That's why you can't say that he got it when he came upon the scene. He must have been present in the cabin in the moments immediately after the ink was spilt. Alright, yes. It was me. I did it. Everything. You killed him? I arranged everything in dead student's cabin to make it look like wardrobe man did it. Then I pressed button to make Burya do emergency stop and both cabin doors shut. I did everything so no one would suspect our angel. Beef, please. Don't worry, Angel. Let me do talking. So, you knowingly accused me of murder. After framing me. That's low, Seaman Stroganov. It was after 1 in the morning. I was on duty, patrolling passageway. Then our angel came to me. She was white like sheet. You could have said like angel, but sure.
Beef, please. You must help me.
I went with her. The door to cabin number 1 was open. When I looked inside, I saw a student boy on the floor. What happened here?
Please, don't tell anyone. My little one. My little furry friend.
Everything that happened in the cabin is like Angel told you. The kitten escaped through the ventilator into Mr. Asogi's cabin. Then he tripped over it and broke his neck when he fell to the floor. Yes, that is right. So after the incident when the cat ran away, Miss Pavlova then visited the cabin next to hers. Only to find its occupant lying lifeless on the floor. She said she was worried when she heard sound of something falling on the floor. That's when she went to look. No, Angel? The door was not locked, so she opened to look, and you already know what happened after.
There's just one thing, if you wouldn't mind.
What?
When you went to Mr. Asogi's cabin, Miss Pavlova, was he already dead? Why?
I already told you! When Nina opened door of student's cabin and looked inside,
I was asking Miss Pavlova.
Oh, Susato? Well, Miss Pavlova, answer the question.
Oh.
So he truly did die of a freak accident?
Yes, that is right. I saw him. It was dark, and he was wearing black, but he was on the floor, not moving. I was scared. I understand, and I believe you.
No more covering up with lies? So is that finally it now? Have we discovered the real truth about Kazuma's death at last? Ah, something very nearly slipped my mind. Oh, Mr. Sholmes? What, pray, was it? This photograph. Yes, I took this myself, you know. You did. I saw that cutscene. The cause of death was a broken neck. Therefore, the victim died instantly. And the unfortunate incident that precipitated these events, a kitten, on which the victim stumbled. However, if those are the facts, there is one particular area in this photograph that seems to me somewhat unnatural. What do you mean, unnatural? What do you mean, unnatural? What are your thoughts on the matter, Mr. Naruhodo? Well... If Kazuma tripped and fell, and by some terrible stroke of bad luck broke his neck, which part of this photographic print seems unnatural? So I'm tempted to say that his finger is pointing to write the message. Obviously, we've learned from Mr. Stroganoff that he set up the entire thing, so it wouldn't be unnatural if he basically yanked out his finger to make it look like he wrote the message. So what are we saying here? The neck itself?
Yes!
Let's present that and see what happens. Must be here, surely. God, no, it's not. Allow me to offer you a piece of advice regarding the pursuit of detection, my dear fellow. When noting a crucial point, it can be helpful to keep your eyes open. Thanks, you snarky son of a bitch. They were open. Sorry, I don't have your fancy glasses. And it can be equally helpful to use them. Sorry. I'll try that.
I think it's plain what Mr. Sholmes means by unnatural, isn't it? The word written in a foreign language underneath his fingertip, surely.
That particularly crass detail was orchestrated by the culprit. No, I mean to identify another point. Imagine, if you will, losing your footing yourself. You'd fall backwards, right? Would you land as the victim has? What of your hands? You look like the sort of fellow who stumbles with some regularity. This should be an easy task. Why do I... Because his fist's closed?
Yes!
Alright, if he really fell due to an unfortunate accident, then this fist just doesn't seem quite right. If you fall, you'd have your palms open to try and catch yourself, at the very least, right? The exact same thought occurred to me. In a fall, one's instinct is to open the palms flat. Yeah, right. Yet here we see the victim with his left hand tightly balled into a fist. Almost, you might say. As though he were gripping something. Huh. What do you mean? Simply that I took the liberty of investigating the victim's fist a short while ago. And what was he holding in his hand, Detective Sholmes? You did? And what, pray, do you imagine I found there, my dear fellow?
Mr. Sholmes, show us!
Why, of course, my dear madam. Would I keep you in suspense? Yes, you would. That's why you haven't shown us until now, you dumbass.